The boardroom hummed with the sterile hum of filtered air and expensive silence. Solara Beaumont stood at the head of the glass table, $70 million in quarterly projections glowing on the screen behind her, and felt absolutely nothing. Her white structured suit fit like armor. Her black pearl necklace, singular, flawless, caught the Seoul skyline through floor-to-ceiling windows. She was counting. 3 acquisitions, 2 board approvals, 1 press conference at 2 p.m. President Beaumont, the Daejeon Bank merger requires your signature by noon. Lee Ji-woo's voice cut through. Tablet extended, immaculate as always. Solara signed without reading. She'd read it 3 times already. The subway was a mistake. Her driver had called in sick. The backup was stuck in Gangnam traffic. And Solara Beaumont, who bought banks the way most people bought coffee, found herself on line 2 at 8:47 a.m., wedged between a university student and a man in a gray sweater who smelled faintly of wood polish and rain. The carriage shook. A street violinist entered through the connecting door, bow scraping across strings in a melody that was almost right, but fundamentally wrong. Solara's jaw tightened. She hated imperfection. She hated chaos. She hated... The man beside her raised his phone. A single pure note rang out. A440, perfect pitch. He smiled at the violinist, kind eyes crinkling. A half-step flat, Hyung. The musician adjusted. The sound snapped into place like a bone resetting. Solara blinked. She didn't know why it mattered. She didn't know why his hand, calloused, holding a worn silver tuning fork as if it were a holy relic, made something clench in her chest. She didn't know why. For the first time in weeks, she laughed. Softly. But she laughed. Perfect pitch? The words left her mouth before her brain approved them. Park Min-jun turned. His face was honest in the way only tired faces can be. Lines of late nights and early mornings, of work that didn't end when the clock struck 5. Relative, but trained. He paused, tilted his head. The whole city goes out of tune if you pay attention. She should have gotten off at the next station. She should have returned to her phone, her emails, her empire of controlled variables. But he said, "Want to listen?" 3 words. No logical sense. Solara Beaumont followed a stranger through the streets of Seoul. They walked in silence. Min-jun didn't fill the air with small talk or nervous explanations. He simply led her down a narrow alley behind Dongdaemun, where laundry hung between buildings, and the smell of kimchi jjigae drifted from open windows. A public school rose ahead, concrete and practicality, roof tiles cracked from decades of weather. Inside, the hallway smelled like floor wax and old textbooks. Children's voices echoed from classrooms. Min-jun opened a door to a small music room where 40-year-old upright piano sat like a forgotten promise. "They think it's broken," he said, kneeling. "It's not, just forgotten." He opened the lid. His hands moved with the surety of a surgeon, adjusting invisible hammers, testing felt, listening to things Solara couldn't hear. When he closed it, a girl no older than 10 entered, sheet music clutched to her chest. "Ah, Juicy, can I try now?" Min-jun gestured. "It's ready for you." She played for Elise. The melody wasn't perfect. Her fingers stumbled on the 4th measure, but the sound was alive. Rich, full of something Solara couldn't name. She sat on the cold floor, not speaking, not planning, without armor. When they left, the sky had turned that particular shade of Seoul afternoon. Half smog, half gold. "Did you hear it?" Min-jun asked. Solara didn't answer immediately, because for the first time in 15 years, yes, she had heard it, not the music, the silence between the notes, the weight of what goes unsaid, the promise of what could be. Min-jun offered the tuning fork. "Keep it, in case you need to remember that not everything can be bought." She took it. Worn silver, engraved in fading script. "For my mother, who listened to the world." He was already walking away when she looked up. "If you've ever met someone who cracked the armor you didn't even know you were wearing, stay with us. Because what happens next will test everything Solara thought she knew about control." And the choice she'll have to make could cost her empire. Subscribe so you don't miss the moment her worlds collide. 3 days later, the photo leaked. Billionaire Beaumont, seen with mystery man on Seoul subway. New romance or PR stunt. The headline crawled across her phone at 6:14 a.m. Solara stared at the grainy image, her laughing, him holding the tuning fork. The angle made it look intimate. The internet made it a scandal. By 7 a.m., her phone had 17 missed calls. By 8 a.m., Lee Ji-woo was in her penthouse with a crisis protocol binder and 2 espressos. Who is he? Ji-woo's voice was clinical. No judgment, just triage. Solara set down her coffee. A piano tuner. Ji-woo's expression didn't shift, but something flickered behind her glasses. Does he know who you are? I didn't tell him. That's not what I asked. Solara picked up the tuning fork from her nightstand. It caught the morning light. I don't think he cares. Ji-woo exhaled through her nose. Then we need to make sure he understands what caring looks like in your world. Shareholders are already asking questions. Choi Sung-hyun sent a memo at 6 a.m. asking if this affects the Daejin merger. It doesn't. It does if the board thinks it does. Ji-woo tapped her tablet. I need his name, address, employment records. We draft an NDA, offer compensation, and this disappears by tomorrow. Solara's hand tightened around the tuning fork. No. Solara, I said no. The silence stretched. Ji-woo closed her tablet. Then you need to decide what you're protecting, him or yourself, because right now you're doing neither. That afternoon, Solara did what she always did when the world pressed too close. She worked. Acquisition proposals, budget reviews, a conference call with investors in Singapore. She was in the middle of explaining projected ROI on the Daejin merger when her assistant knocked. There's someone here to see you. He says you have his tuning fork. Her heart did something arrhythmic. Park Min-joon stood in her glass-walled office like a question mark in gray cotton. He looked around, at the skyline, the minimalist furniture, the abstract art that cost more than most people's annual salary. And his expression didn't change. I brought you something, he said. He handed her a notebook. Worn, spiral-bound, pages filled with handwritten notes and sketches. What is this? A list. He smiled faintly. Every piano in Seoul I've tuned or repaired in the last 3 years. Schools, community centers, elderly homes. Some of them are older than me. Some are barely pianos anymore, but they still make sound. Solara opened it. Page after page. Addresses, names, dates, notes about tone and temperament. Yongsan Community Center. Upright. Needs new hammers. Mrs. Kim says her grandson wants to learn. Seongbuk Elementary. Grand piano, 1987. Still plays Chopin like it's 1987. Why are you showing me this? Min-joon met her eyes. Because you asked what I do. This is what I do. I remember the pianos no one else remembers. She closed the notebook carefully. The photo. I saw it. And I don't care about photos. He tilted his head. Do you? Yes. No. She didn't know. My world cares. Then maybe your world is too small. The door opened. Lee Ji-woo entered with printouts, stopped short when she saw Min-joon, recalibrated instantly. President Beaumont, the board meeting is in 15 minutes. I'll be there. Ji-woo's gaze flicked between them, cataloging, analyzing. Should I prepare anything regarding the recent media attention? No. Solara stood. Mr. Park was just leaving. Min-joon didn't move immediately. He looked at the notebook in her hands, then at her. You still have the tuning fork. I do. Good. He turned to go, paused at the door. If you ever want to hear the pianos on that list, call me. They're better than boardrooms. He left. Ji-woo closed the door with surgical precision. That was him. Yes. Solara, you can't. I know what I can't do, Ji-woo. Solara's voice was steel, wrapped in silk. I've spent 15 years building this. I'm not throwing it away for a man who tunes pianos." But her hand was still on the notebook. And that night, alone in her penthouse with the Seoul skyline glittering like a circuit board, she opened it. She read every entry, every note, every small kindness rendered in pencil and patience. And for the second time in a week, Solara Beaumont, who controlled banks and boardrooms and billion-dollar mergers, had no idea what to do. The board meeting was a firing squad in Italian wool. Choi Sang-hyun sat at the far end of the table, smile sharp as a credit downgrade. "President Beaumont, congratulations on your newfound public profile." The room rippled with polite, lethal silence. Solara folded her hands. "Thank you, Director Choi, though I wasn't aware my personal life required board approval. It does when it affects stock prices." He slid a tablet across the table. "We dropped 2% in afternoon trading. Investors are asking questions. Questions about focus, about judgment." She glanced at the screen. The numbers were real. The implications were theater. 2% is noise. Our quarterly earnings are up 18%. The Daejin merger is ahead of schedule. One photograph doesn't erase fundamentals. Matriarch Helen Beaumont, elegant, silver-haired, terrifying, spoke from her seat near the window. "Fundamentals include reputation, Solara. In this industry, perception is reality. You know that." "I do." Solara met her adoptive mother's gaze. "Which is why I'm addressing it directly. The photograph was incidental, a chance encounter. Nothing more." "Then you won't mind signing a statement to that effect," Choi said smoothly. "And ensuring the other party does the same, with appropriate compensation for his discretion." Silence. "You want me to pay him to be silent. I want you to protect this company." Choi's smile didn't reach his eyes. "Unless you believe your personal judgment supersedes fiduciary responsibility." Lee Ji-woo cleared her throat. "We've prepared a draft NDA, standard terms, generous compensation. It resolves the issue cleanly." The document appeared on Solara's tablet. Legalese and leverage, a contract that turned 3 minutes on a subway into a transaction. She thought of the notebook, the list of forgotten pianos, the engraving on the tuning fork. "For my mother, who listened to the world." "I'll handle it," Solara said. Helen's eyes narrowed fractionally. "Solara, I said I'll handle it." She stood. "Is there anything else, or can we return to the reason we're actually here, approving the Daejin acquisition?" The meeting proceeded. Numbers and projections and strategic synergies. Solara participated with her usual precision, but her mind was elsewhere. On a worn notebook, on a man who remembered pianos no one else remembered, on the choice she was about to make. She called him that evening. Min-jun answered on the third ring. "Hello? It's Solara Beaumont." "I know." She could hear the smile in his voice. "You're the only person who calls from a blocked number. I need to see you." Pause. "When?" "Now, if you're available. I'm tuning a piano at Songsu Elementary. You're welcome to come." She almost laughed. "I don't think—" "Third floor. Music room. The piano's from 1985, but it still has good bones." He hung up before she could argue. Songsu Elementary was 40 minutes from her penthouse and a universe from her life. Solara arrived in a company car, heels clicking on linoleum that had seen decades of children's footsteps. The music room smelled like chalk dust and old wood. Min-jun was elbow-deep in the upright piano, adjusting something she couldn't see. He didn't look up. "You came. You invited me." "I invited you to listen. Not sure you did." She set her bag down. The NDA was inside. 50 pages of legal protection and 18 months of salary for a man who probably made less in a year than she spent on shoes. "I need to talk to you about the photograph." "Okay." He tested a key, adjusted, tested again. "My board wants you to sign a non-disclosure agreement." "What's that?" She blinked. A legal document that prevents you from discussing our encounter. In exchange, you'd receive financial compensation. Minjun finally looked up. His expression was unreadable. How much? She told him. He whistled low. That's more than I make in 18 months. Yes. And all I have to do is promise not to talk about meeting you on the subway. Essentially. He turned back to the piano, played a scale. The notes rose clear and true. No. Solara's breath caught. No. No. He closed the piano lid gently. I don't want your money. And I don't want to sign something that says meeting you was a mistake. That's not what it says. That's exactly what it says. Minjun faced her fully. You're asking me to erase something that happened because it's inconvenient for you. Because your world demands it. But I live in a different world. I know that. Do you? His voice was gentle, but the question landed like a challenge. Because from where I'm standing, you're treating this like a transaction. Like I'm a problem to be solved with a contract and a check. I'm trying to protect you. From what? Public attention? I don't care about that. From your board? They don't know I exist. You're not protecting me, Solara. You're protecting yourself. The truth of it hit like cold water. She sank onto the piano bench. They'll destroy you. If this continues. If there's anything that looks like more than coincidence, they'll dig into your life, your work, your family. They'll turn you into a headline. Then let them. Minjun knelt in front of her, eye level. I've been invisible my whole life. If being seen means they come after me, at least I'll know I mattered to someone. You don't understand what you're saying. I understand perfectly. He took her hands. Calloused warmth against her manicured fingers. You're scared. Not of them. Of yourself. Of what happens if you choose something that doesn't fit into your spreadsheets and quarterly reports. Solara's throat tightened. I've spent 15 years building this. Everything I am. Everything I have. It came from control. From never letting anyone see weakness. And how's that working out? She almost laughed. Almost cried. I don't know anymore. Minjun squeezed her hands. Then maybe it's time to find out. He stood, went back to the piano, played a simple melody. Something she didn't recognize but felt in her bones. What is that? Something my mother used to play. She said music isn't about the notes. It's about the space between them. The silence where the meaning lives. Solara listened. Really listened. And in that school music room, surrounded by decades of children's dreams and a man who refused to be bought, she made a choice. She left the NDA on the bench, unsigned. The Seoul winter came early and brutal. By mid-November, the Han River froze at the edges and the city moved faster, as if speed could generate warmth. Solara watched it from her office. People bundled in long coats and scarves, hands wrapped around paper cups from street vendors, breath forming clouds in the air. She envied them their simplicity. The past 2 weeks had been a study in controlled disaster. Stock prices fluctuated. Shareholders whispered. The Daejin merger stalled on technical details that felt suspiciously like strategic sabotage. And through it all, Choi Sang-hyun smiled his credit downgrade smile and waited. Lee Ji-woo entered without knocking. They're ready. Who? Everyone. Ji-woo's expression was grim. Helen called an emergency board session. Full attendance. Non-negotiable. Solara's stomach turned to ice. When? 20 minutes. The boardroom felt smaller than usual. Or perhaps the presence of 12 board members, Helen Beaumont at the head, and Choi Sang-hyun wearing his victory face made the glass walls seem to close in. Solara sat, folded her hands, waited. Helen spoke first. Solara, thank you for joining us on short notice. Of course. Her voice was steady. Years of practice. We need to discuss the current situation. Your relationship with Mr. Park Min-jun has become a liability we can no longer ignore. I wasn't aware we were discussing my personal life in a corporate setting. We're discussing your judgment, Choi interjected. 3 more articles this week. Speculation about your priorities. Investors asking if you're distracted. The Daejeon merger team wants assurances of your full commitment. Solara met his gaze. The merger is on track. Every deadline met. Every benchmark exceeded. My personal life has not affected my professional performance. Perception affects reality, Helen said quietly. You taught me that, remember? When you were 26 and convinced me to let you lead the Hanmi Bank acquisition. You said reputation was currency in this industry. I remember. Then you understand our position. Helen's voice was gentle, lethal. We're offering you a choice. End this. Connection with Mr. Park. Issue a statement. Focus fully on the company. Or we invoke the morality clause in your contract. Step down as CEO. Transition to an advisory role. The room tilted. Solara had written that clause herself. Protection against executives whose personal scandals damaged the brand. She'd never imagined it aimed at her. You're asking me to choose between my private life and my position. We're asking you to prioritize the empire you built, Choi said. Unless you believe a piano tuner is worth more than everything you've achieved. Silence. Solara thought of Minjun's hands on piano keys, the notebook of forgotten instruments, the way he'd refused the NDA because it felt like erasing something real. I need time to consider. You have 48 hours, Helen said. After that, the board votes. Solara left the building through the parking garage, avoiding the lobby where journalists sometimes waited. Her hands shook as she started the car. Not from fear, from rage. She drove without destination. Found herself on the bridge over the Han River, traffic crawling, city lights reflecting on ice. She pulled over, sat, stared at nothing. Her phone buzzed. A text from Min Jun. Piano at Dongdaemun is finally fixed. Want to hear it? She typed. I can't. Deleted it. Typed. I'm losing everything. Deleted it. Typed. Address? He sent a location pin, a community center in Yongno-gu, the kind of place that hosted neighborhood meetings and children's art classes. She shouldn't go. She should return to her penthouse, call her lawyers, prepare her defense. But she went anyway. The community center smelled like floor wax and old paper. Min Jun was in a small room with a battered grand piano that looked like it had survived wars. When he saw her, his smile faded. What happened? Solara shook her head, couldn't speak. He crossed the room, pulled her into a hug. She stiffened. Public displays were dangerous. Witnesses were everywhere. But then his warmth wrapped around her and she broke. Not tears, just the collapse of years of armor. They want me to choose, she whispered into his shoulder. You or everything I've built. His arms tightened. That's not a fair choice. It's the only one I have. No. Min Jun pulled back, hands on her shoulders. You have the choice to define what matters. They're giving you an ultimatum. But you decide what you're willing to sacrifice. If I choose you, I lose my company. If you choose the company, you lose yourself. He touched her face. I've watched you these past weeks, seen you laugh, heard you breathe. You're alive in ways you weren't when we met. Don't go back to being armor. I don't know how to be anything else. Then learn. He kissed her forehead. I'll wait. She wanted to believe him, wanted to believe love could outweigh legacy. But the weight of 15 years pressed down. Every late night, every sacrifice, every battle won through sheer refusal to yield. I need 48 hours, she said. Take them. Min Jun stepped back. But Solara? Whatever you decide, make sure it's your choice, not theirs. She left. Drove home. Stood in her penthouse and looked at the Seoul skyline, her empire, her cage, and knew the next 2 days would decide everything. The tuning fork sat on her nightstand. She picked it up. The engraving was worn, but readable. For my mother, who listened to the world. For the first time in 15 years, Solara Beaumont let herself cry. The cafe was the kind Min-jun frequented. Narrow, no English menu, plastic chairs and fluorescent lights that flickered every 7 seconds. Solara felt overdressed in her cashmere coat. But when Min-jun handed her a paper cup of instant coffee with too much sugar, she drank it without complaint. "Why here?" she asked. "Because no one from your world comes here." He smiled. Safe space. She looked around. An elderly man reading a newspaper. A student with headphones buried in textbooks. A mother bribing her toddler with crackers. Normal life. The kind she'd left behind at 19 when she changed her name from Sarah Johnson to Solara Beaumont. "I need to tell you something," Solara said, "about who I was before all this." Min-jun set down his coffee. Waited. "I grew up poor. Mississippi. Single mother who worked 3 jobs. We lived in a trailer park where the heat didn't work and the roof leaked every spring." Her voice was steady, clinical. "When I was 17, my mother got sick. Cancer. No insurance. I watched her die because we couldn't afford treatment." His hand covered hers. She kept talking. "I got a scholarship. Full ride to business school. Met Helen Beaumont at a networking event. She saw something in me. Hunger, maybe. Desperation. She offered to fund my MBA if I interned at her company. I said yes. And I became someone else. Solara. Solara. Powerful. Untouchable. Someone who would never feel helpless again." She met his eyes. "I built this empire on the promise that I'd never be that girl in the trailer park. That I'd never be poor. Never be powerless. Never need anyone. And now? Now I don't know if I built an empire or a prison." Min-jun was quiet for a long moment. Then, "My mother was a pianist. Concert level. She could have played anywhere in the world, but she stayed in Seoul, taught music at public schools, tuned pianos for free in neighborhoods that couldn't afford it. Why? I asked her that once. She said, "Music doesn't belong to concert halls. It belongs to everyone. I'm just a translator." He smiled, sad and warm. "She died when I was 19. Stroke, sudden. She was tuning a piano at an elderly home when it happened." Solara's chest ached. "I became a tuner because of her. Because she taught me that value isn't measured in money. It's measured in presence. In listening. In remembering the pianos no one else remembers." He squeezed her hand. "You're not a prisoner, Solara. You're just scared of who you might be if you stop controlling everything. What if I lose it all? Then you rebuild. But this time, you build something that lets you breathe." The fluorescent light flickered. The toddler laughed. The student turned a page. And in that cheap cafe with instant coffee and plastic chairs, Solara Beaumont realized she'd been holding her breath for 15 years. "I don't know if I'm strong enough to walk away," she whispered. "You don't have to walk away. You just have to decide what you're walking toward." She nodded, didn't trust her voice. They sat in silence, drinking terrible coffee, holding hands across a table that wobbled. And for the first time since the boardroom ultimatum, Solara felt something shift. Not certainty, but possibility. That night, she opened Min-jun's notebook again. Read every entry, every forgotten piano, every small act of service rendered without payment or recognition. And she began to write. Not a business plan, not a strategy document. A list. Things I want to build. 1. A fund that restores pianos in underserved communities. 2. Music education programs for children who can't afford private lessons. 3. A life where I remember to breathe. 4. A relationship where I'm Sarah, not just Solara. She stared at the last item. Sarah, her real name. The girl from Mississippi who'd been buried under 15 years of armor and ambition. Her phone buzzed. A text from Lee Ji-woo. "Have you decided?" Solara typed. "Not yet. But I'm close. She looked at the list, at the tuning fork on her nightstand, at the Seoul skyline glittering like a promise and a threat. 48 hours, one choice, everything on the line. She closed her eyes, and for the first time in years, she prayed. Not to God, to her mother, to Minjun's mother, to every person who'd ever had to choose between survival and soul. Help me know which one I'm supposed to pick. The city hummed. The night deepened. The clock ticked toward a deadline that felt like destiny. And Solara Beaumont, Sarah Johnson, sat in the dark and waited for an answer that only she could give. The internet moves faster than truth. By morning, Solara's phone held 43 notifications, 18 articles, and one trending hashtag, Nur Beaumont boyfriend. Someone had captured them at the cafe. Her in cashmere, him in a gray sweater, hands linked across a plastic table. The photo was intimate, undeniable. A missile aimed directly at her 48-hour deadline. Lee Ji-woo was at her door by 7 a.m. with damage control protocols and barely suppressed panic. It's everywhere. Korean media, international business outlets. Someone leaked it to Bloomberg. Ji-woo's tablet showed headlines in 4 languages. Beaumont's secret romance, CEO's poor judgment, love or liability. Solara read them without flinching. Who leaked it? Unknown. But the timing is surgical. 24 hours before your board decision. Ji-woo's jaw tightened. This is Choi Sang-hyun. He wants you to walk into that meeting already buried. Will it work? Depends on how you respond. Ji-woo set down the tablet. You have 3 options. 1, issue a denial. Say it was a professional consultation. He's a vendor, nothing personal. Lie. Strategically reframe. Ji-woo's expression was unreadable. 2, admit the relationship, but promise to end it. Show the board you prioritize the company. Sacrifice him. Protect your position. Ji-woo paused. 3, do nothing. Let the board decide without input. Accept the consequences. Surrender. Autonomy. Ji-woo removed her glasses, rubbed the bridge of her nose. Solara, I've worked with you for 8 years. I've seen you close impossible deals, outmaneuver sharks, build an empire from sheer will, but I've never seen you happy. Not once. Solara blinked. Ji-woo. Until him. Ji-woo met her eyes. The past few weeks, you've been different. Lighter. Human. And it terrifies me because happiness makes you vulnerable. But maybe... She trailed off. Maybe vulnerability isn't weakness. Maybe it's the only thing you've been missing. The words hung in the expensive silence. Solara's phone buzzed. A text from Minjun. Saw the articles. I'm sorry. If you need space, I understand. She stared at it. He was offering her an exit. A clean break. The easy path. She typed, "Meet me tonight, 8 p.m., Namsan Tower." His response was immediate. "I'll be there." The Seoul Tower observation deck was nearly empty on a Wednesday evening. Solara arrived first, stood at the window overlooking the city. Millions of lights, millions of lives. A universe of possibility and constraint. Minjun appeared beside her. Hands in pockets. Expression careful. "You picked a very public place," he said. "I did." "Why?" She turned to face him. "Because I'm tired of hiding, tired of treating my life like a liability to be managed." She took a breath. "The board meets tomorrow. They're going to ask me to choose, you or the company. What are you going to say?" "I don't know yet." Solara's voice cracked. "I've built everything on control, on never needing anyone, on being untouchable. And then you handed me a tuning fork and played for release for a 10-year-old. And I remembered what it feels like to be human." Minjun stepped closer. "You don't have to choose me, Solara. I'm not asking you to burn down your life." "I know." She touched his face. "But what if I want to? What if I'm tired of living in a glass tower and measuring my worth in stock prices and board approvals?" "Then don't." His hands covered hers. But don't do it for me. Do it because you deserve more than a prison you built yourself. Below them, Soul glittered. Above them, stars tried to compete with city lights and lost. I'm scared, Solara whispered. Me too. Minjun pulled her close. But I'm here. However this goes, I'm here. She kissed him then. In the middle of the observation deck where anyone could see. Where cameras might capture it. Where tomorrow's headlines could call it reckless or romantic, or the death of her career. She didn't care. Because for the first time in 15 years, Solara Beaumont was choosing something that couldn't be quantified in quarterly reports. When they broke apart, Minjun smiled. That's going to be viral by morning. Probably. Worth it. She thought of the girl from Mississippi, the woman in the boardroom, the person she might become if she stopped being afraid. Ask me tomorrow. They stayed until the tower closed, hands linked, hearts exposed, future uncertain. And when Solara returned to her penthouse, she found an email from Helen Beaumont. Subject line: We need to talk. Alone. She opened it. My office. 9 a.m. Before the board meeting. I won't ask you to change your mind, but I need you to understand what you're risking. H. Solara set down her phone, looked at the tuning fork on her nightstand, at her reflection in the dark window, tired, uncertain, more alive than she'd been in years. Tomorrow would decide everything. Tonight, she slept without armor. Helen Beaumont's office was old money and quiet power. Dark wood, leather chairs that remembered decades, a grand piano in the corner that was never played but always polished. Solara had been here 100 times. This was the first time it felt like a courtroom. Helen sat behind her desk, silver hair perfect, expression unreadable. Close the door. Solara did. Sat. Folded her hands. Waited. Helen poured tea from a porcelain set older than both of them. Handed Solara a cup. Do you know why I chose you? Because I was hungry. Because you reminded me of someone. Helen's gaze was distant. When I was 25, I fell in love. His name was James. He was a teacher, public school, English literature. He read poetry and believed in changing the world one student at a time. Solara's hand stilled on her teacup. My family hated him. Wrong class. Wrong income bracket. Wrong everything. They gave me an ultimatum. Him or the empire. I was young, stupid, certain I could have both. Helen's voice was desert dry. I was wrong. What happened? I chose the empire. Married the man they picked. Built Beaumont Holdings into what it is today. Had a successful career. A respected name. Everything I was supposed to want. She met Solara's eyes. I've been miserable for 43 years. The silence was surgical. I told you this story once before. Do you remember? Solara nodded. When you recruited me, you said regret was the only debt that never got paid off. And I meant it, but I didn't tell you the full story. Helen stood, walked to the window. Seoul spread below like a kingdom. James died 10 years ago. Heart attack. I saw the obituary. He'd taught for 40 years. Hundreds of students came to his funeral. They talked about how he changed their lives. How he made them believe they mattered. Helen, I went to the funeral. Stood in the back. No one recognized me. Why would they? I'd erased myself from his life. Her reflection in the glass was ghost pale. And I realized I'd spent 40 years building an empire no one would mourn. Solara's throat closed. Helen turned. I'm telling you this because I see myself in you. The hunger, the control, the belief that if you just work hard enough, sacrifice enough, you'll finally feel safe. She sat back down. But you won't. Because safety isn't about money or power. It's about knowing someone will mourn you for who you were, not what you built. The board is expecting me to choose the company. The board is expecting you to be who I was, obedient, strategic, willing to kill your heart for a stock price. Helen's voice was steel. I'm telling you not to make my mistake. Solara stared. You're saying I should walk away? I'm saying you should choose the life you can live with. If that's the company, fine. But if it's him, don't let fear decide for you. Helen opened a drawer, pulled out an old photograph. A young woman with dark hair and defiant eyes, standing next to a man in a corduroy jacket, both laughing. James, Solara said softly. James. Helen set down the photo. I kept this for 40 years, a reminder of what I gave up. Don't let your version of this be a tuning fork and regret. Solara stood. Her legs felt unsteady. What will happen if I choose him? Choi Sang-hyun will push for your removal. The board will likely vote in his favor. You'll lose your title, your office, your position. And you? Helen smiled. Sad and true. I'll vote against him. It won't save you. But at least this time, I'll choose love over fear. Solara crossed to her, hugged the woman who'd funded her MBA, taught her to survive corporate warfare, and never once asked for affection in return. Helen stiffened, then softened, held her like the daughter she'd never had. Thank you, Solara whispered. Don't thank me. Just live better than I did. The board meeting was scheduled for 2 p.m. Solara spent the morning in her office, going through documents she'd drafted over 8 years, acquisition proposals, strategic plans, the architecture of an empire built from hunger and will. Lee Ji-woo knocked, entered, set down a folder. What's this? A proposal. For after. Ji-woo's expression was carefully neutral. If you step down, Choi Sang-hyun becomes acting CEO. He'll dismantle everything you built. So I drafted a counter-proposal. Solara opened it. The Fund of Silences, a community music initiative. What is this? A nonprofit, funded by your personal assets. It restores pianos in underserved communities, provides music education, partners with public schools. Ji-woo sat. You built one empire, build another, one that doesn't require armor. Solara read the document, every detail mapped out. Budgets, partnerships, a mission statement. Music doesn't belong to concert halls. It belongs to everyone. This is Minjun's work, she said softly. It's yours. He just reminded you it existed. Ji-woo stood. Whatever you decide, I'll support you. But Solara, you're allowed to want more than survival. She left before Solara could respond. At 1:45 p.m., Solara stood in front of her office mirror. White suit, black pearl necklace, the armor she'd worn for 15 years. She took off the necklace, set it on her desk, picked up the tuning fork, slipped it into her pocket, and walked into the boardroom with her heart exposed and her decision made. The boardroom felt like an arena. 12 board members. Helen Beaumont at the far end, expression neutral. Choi Sang-hyun at the other, smile predatory. Lee Ji-woo sat near the wall, tablet in hand, witness to whatever came next. Solara took her seat, folded her hands, met every gaze without flinching. Thank you all for coming, she began. I know why we're here. So let's dispense with formalities. Choi leaned forward. President Beaumont, have you made your decision regarding your personal situation? I have. And? Solara smiled, calm and lethal. I'm choosing to redefine the terms of this discussion. Confusion rippled through the room. You presented me with an ultimatum, my relationship or my position, as if those were the only variables that mattered, as if my value to this company could be reduced to a single binary choice. She stood, walked to the window. Seoul sprawled below, her kingdom, her cage. But I built this company, not you, not the board, me. And I did it by seeing opportunities everyone else missed. Your point? Choi's voice was sharp. My point is that I'm presenting a third option. She turned. I'm stepping down as CEO, effective immediately. The room exploded. voices overlapping, shock and calculation and barely suppressed glee from Choi's corner. Helen's expression didn't change, but something flickered in her eyes. Pride, maybe, or recognition. However, Solara continued, voice cutting through the noise, I'm retaining my shares, my board seat, and my voting rights, which means I still have significant influence over company direction. Choi's smile faltered. Additionally, I'm announcing the establishment of a non-profit organization, the Fund of Silences. Its mission is to restore and donate pianos to underserved communities throughout Seoul and beyond. It will be funded by my personal assets and operate independently of Beaumont Holdings. She pulled out the tuning fork, set it on the table. The silver caught the light. This belonged to the mother of the man you've all been so concerned about. She was a pianist, a teacher, someone who understood that value isn't measured in stock prices. It's measured in lives touched, in silences honored, in remembering what everyone else forgets. Lee Ji-woo projected the proposal onto the screen. Budgets, partnerships, a mission statement that felt like prayer. This is my answer to your ultimatum. I'm choosing both. The work I believe in, and the person who reminds me why it matters. And if that makes me unfit to lead this company, so be it. Solara met Choi's gaze. But I'm not apologizing. Not to you. Not to anyone. Silence. Then Helen spoke. I move to accept President Beaumont's resignation and appoint her to the advisory board with full voting rights. Seconded, said another board member. Choi's face turned to stone. This is highly irregular. It's also within our bylaws, Lee Ji-woo interjected smoothly. Advisory board members retain voting privileges. President Beaumont's resignation doesn't eliminate her influence. It redistributes it. I call for a vote, Helen said. 8 hands raised in favor, 3 against. Choi abstained, face murderous. Motion passes. Helen's voice was silk over steel. President Beaumont is officially transitioned to the advisory board. We'll appoint an interim CEO pending a full search. Solara exhaled. Didn't realize she'd been holding her breath. Meeting adjourned, Helen said. The board filed out. Choi left without a word, though his fury was a tangible thing. Lee Ji-woo squeezed Solara's shoulder. You did good. I just blew up my career. You built a new one. Better one. Ji-woo smiled. I'll handle the press release. When the room emptied, only Helen remained. That was reckless, she said. I learned from the best. Helen laughed. Actually laughed. James would have liked him. Your piano tuner. Minjun. Minjun. Helen stood, walked to Solara, took her hands. I'm proud of you. More than any deal you ever closed. Any merger you orchestrated. This, choosing yourself, this is the bravest thing you've ever done. Solara's eyes burned. I'm terrified. Good. Means you're alive. Helen left. Solara stood alone in the boardroom that had been her battlefield for 8 years. Picked up the tuning fork. Felt its weight. Grief and promise. And inherited wisdom. Her phone buzzed. Minjun, how did it go? She typed. Meet me at your apartment. I have news. Good or bad? Both. Mostly good. She left the building, walked out through the lobby where she'd entered 1,000 times as CEO. The security guard nodded. Have a good day, President Beaumont. Just Solara now, she said. And for the first time in 15 years, it felt like the truth. Minjun's apartment was exactly as she'd imagined. Small, cluttered with music books and tuning equipment, the upright piano dominating the single room like a patient friend. He'd made tea. Cheap, strong, perfect. So, he said, you quit. I resigned. There's a difference. Is there? She told him everything. The board meeting. Helen's story. The Fund of Silences. The way Choi Sang-hyun's face had turned to carved fury when she'd outmaneuvered him. Minjun listened without interrupting. When she finished, he set down his tea. Are you okay? I don't know yet. Solara's hands shook slightly. I just walked away from everything I built. No, you walked toward something better. You don't know that. I know you're breathing. He touched her face. Really breathing, not just surviving. She leaned into his hand. I'm scared of failing, of this, us, not being enough, of regretting this in 5 years. Then we'll regret it together. Minjun pulled her close. But Solara, I don't think you will. I think you just did the hardest thing anyone can do. Chose yourself over the story everyone else wrote for you. She kissed him, slow and deep, and full of everything she'd spent 15 years not letting herself feel. When they broke apart, he smiled. So, the Fund of Silences. Tell me about it. They spent the next 3 hours planning, not in boardrooms or glass towers, in his tiny apartment with cheap tea and a piano that remembered his mother's hands. They mapped out communities, identified schools, drafted partnership proposals. It felt like building an empire. But this time, the foundation was purpose, not fear. We'll need volunteers, Minjun said. People who can tune and repair. Teachers who believe music belongs to everyone. I know people. Solara pulled out her phone. Li Ji-woo is drafting the incorporation documents, but we need community partners, schools, neighborhood centers. I have a list. Minjun pulled out his worn notebook, the same one he'd shown her weeks ago. Every school I've ever worked with, every community center. Some are desperate for instruments. Others just need maintenance. Solara took the notebook, flipped through pages of his careful handwriting, addresses and names and small notations. Mrs. Kim's grandson wants to learn piano. Principal Park said the music room hasn't been used in 5 years. Elder home in Seongbuk has a 1970s upright gathering dust. This is beautiful, she whispered. It's just a list. No. She met his eyes. It's a map of every place you've loved. Every person you've remembered when everyone else forgot. He kissed her forehead. Then let's remember them together. They worked until midnight. Solara's business acumen met Minjun's ground-level knowledge, and something extraordinary took shape. A 3-tiered program, restore donated pianos, place them in underserved communities, provide free tuning and maintenance, partner with music teachers to offer lessons, create performance opportunities for children who'd never touched an instrument. We'll need funding beyond your initial investment, Minjun said, practical even in dreams. I have contacts, donors who supported Beaumont Holdings' charitable initiatives. Some of them will follow me. Solara made notes on her tablet. And we can apply for grants, cultural preservation, arts education, social equity. We'll need a physical space, office, storage for instruments awaiting restoration. I'm selling my penthouse. The words came out before she'd fully decided, but once spoken, they felt right. It's worth $12 million. I can buy a smaller place and use the rest for the foundation. Minjun stared. Solara. It's too big anyway. All that glass and empty space. I only bought it to prove I could. She smiled. Time to invest in something that actually matters. He pulled her into his lap. You're sure about this? All of it? Because once we start, there's no going back to the boardroom. I'm terrified, but I'm sure. She touched his face. For the first time in 15 years, I'm building something that feels like me. Not Sarah trying to survive. Not Solara trying to prove herself. Just me. I like you, Minjun said softly. All the versions, but especially this one. They fell asleep on his couch, tangled together, the notebook of forgotten pianos open on the coffee table like a promise. The call came at dawn. Helen's voice was controlled. Clinical. Can you come to the house? We need to discuss next steps. Solara arrived at the Beaumont estate an hour later. The mansion sat in Seongbuk-dong, old money territory where trees outnumbered people and walls protected privacy like national secrets. She'd lived here for 3 years after Helen took her in. It had never felt like home. Helen waited in the music room. The grand piano, a Steinway older than both of them, gleamed in morning light. She wore a simple dress, no jewelry. Somehow that made her seem more formidable. Sit. Solara sat on the piano bench. Helen poured coffee from a silver service, handed Solara a cup. The board is in chaos. Choi is already positioning himself for interim CEO. The Daejeon merger may collapse without your direct involvement. I know. Do you? Helen's gaze was surgical. You built that company. Every system, every relationship, every strategic advantage. Without you, it will bleed value. Then maybe it wasn't as strong as I thought. Or maybe you're abandoning it out of spite. The words landed like a slap. I'm not abandoning anything. I'm choosing differently. Are you? Helen set down her cup. Solara, I told you about James, about my regret. But I didn't tell you everything. Silence. I left him because my family threatened to disinherit me, to destroy his career. He taught English at a public school. Do you know how easy it is to ruin a teacher's reputation? One accusation, one investigation. Even if cleared, the stain never washes out. Helen's voice cracked. They promised to annihilate him if I didn't comply. So I left. To protect him. Solara's chest tightened. I told myself I was being noble, sacrificial, that loving him meant letting him go. Helen walked to the window. But I was wrong. I wasn't protecting him. I was protecting myself from the fight, from the discomfort, from choosing love over convenience. Helen, let me finish. She turned. I called him once, 20 years later. He was married, had 2 children. A good life. He thanked me for leaving, said it forced him to build something real. Her eyes were dry but haunted. He forgave me, but I never forgave myself. Why are you telling me this? Because you're making the same mistake in reverse. Helen sat beside her on the bench. You're walking away from the company as if keeping it means you don't love him. But Solara, you can do both. You can fight for your work and your relationship. They're not mutually exclusive. The board gave me an ultimatum. The board is 12 people. You have shareholders, allies, Lee Ji-woo, me. Helen took her hands. Don't let Choi Sang-hyun's threats make you believe you have to choose. Fight for what you built. Transform it. But don't burn it down because you think sacrifice equals love. Solara stared at their joined hands. I thought you'd be angry. That I quit. I'm not angry. I'm proud. Helen smiled. But I'm also practical. You stepped down to prove a point. Fine. Point proven. Now what? The Fund of Silences is beautiful, necessary, and shouldn't be your only identity. Helen squeezed her hands. You can run a nonprofit and serve on the board. You can build music programs and mentor the next CEO. You can love Park Min-joon and maintain the empire you created. Stop thinking in binaries. The piano loomed beside them. Silent. Waiting. I don't know if I can do both. Of course you can. You're Solara Beaumont. You closed the Hami Bank acquisition in 3 months when everyone said it would take 2 years. You outmaneuvered 20 senior executives to become CEO at 33. Helen stood. The only thing stopping you is the belief that you have to choose between armor and softness. But real strength is wearing both. She walked to the piano, opened the lid, played a single note. It hung in the air, pure and resonant. James loved Chopin, Helen said quietly. I haven't played since he died. Helen, play something for me. I don't know how. Then learn. Helen's smile was gentle. If you're going to run a music foundation, you should understand what you're preserving. Solara stood, placed her fingers on the keys, pressed middle C. The sound vibrated through wood and air and bone. Again, Helen said. She played it again. Then D, then E. Simple, childlike, the beginning of something she'd never let herself try. Helen joined her, played a simple melody with her right hand while Solara held the bass notes. Together, they made something almost like music. "See?" Helen said. "Not so hard." When they finished, Solara was crying. "Thank you," she whispered. "For what?" "For not giving up on me. Even when I gave up on myself." Helen hugged her. Really hugged her. Not the corporate air kiss or professional pat. A mother's embrace. "I didn't save James," Helen said into her hair. "But maybe I can help save you." They stood in the music room for a long time. Two women who'd built empires and lost themselves, finding each other in the wreckage. And when Solara left, she carried something new. Permission to be complicated. Solara didn't go straight home. Instead, she found herself at Seongsu Elementary, the school where Minjun had refused her NDA, where everything had shifted. She found him in the music room, elbow deep in an ancient upright. A woman sat nearby in a wheelchair, watching with quiet attention. "Solara." Minjun looked up, surprised. "This is Kim Hae-won, my best friend." Hae-won extended a hand. Kind face, round glasses, the particular stillness of someone who'd made peace with difficulty. The famous Solara Beaumont. Just Solara now. "Good, titles are exhausting." Hae-won smiled. "Minjun talks about you constantly, the woman who remembered the tuning fork, who followed him to a public school, who chose love over a boardroom." Solara glanced at Minjun. He had the grace to look embarrassed. "I'm not that noble," Solara said, sitting. "I'm terrified I made the wrong choice." "Then you're human." Hae-won's voice was gentle. "Minjun, show her what we've been working on." Minjun pulled out a folder. Inside, medical bills, physical therapy invoices, medication receipts, all marked paid. "I don't understand," Solara said. "Hae-won has a degenerative muscular condition," Minjun said quietly. "He was a music teacher, one of the best, but the disease forced him to stop. Insurance covers some treatments, not all." "Minjun pays the difference," Hae-won finished. "Has been for 3 years. He works 3 jobs, tuning pianos during the day, teaching night classes, weekend maintenance at concert halls. He thinks I don't know, but of course I know." Solara's throat closed. "Why didn't you tell me?" she asked Minjun. "Because it's not heroic. It's just what you do for people you love." He wouldn't meet her eyes. "And because I was afraid you'd try to help. Make it a transaction. Your world fixes everything with money. Is that what you think of me?" "No." He looked up. "But it's what I was scared of. That you'd see me as a charity case. Someone to save instead of someone to love." Hae-won cleared his throat. "I'm going to give you 2 privacy. But Solara, he's right to be scared. Not because you're cruel, because you're powerful. And power has a way of turning love into rescue." He wheeled himself out, leaving them alone with the half-tuned piano. "I wouldn't have done that," Solara said softly. "I know. Now. But then..." Minjun sat beside her on the bench. "I've spent my whole life being invisible. The guy who fixes things. The friend who helps. The son of a famous pianist who chose to tune instead of play. And suddenly, you saw me. Really saw me. I was terrified it was because you needed a project. You're not a project. I know." He took her hand. "But I needed time to believe it." Solara thought of her penthouse, her portfolio, the instinct to solve every problem with strategy and capital. "I'm learning that not everything can be fixed with money. Some things can." Minjun kissed her knuckles. "Hae-won needs a new wheelchair. Custom built. $30,000. Insurance won't cover it. I've been saving for 2 years. Let me help." "Solara, not as charity, as partnership." She met his eyes. "The Fund of Silences isn't just about pianos. It's about community, about remembering people. What if we expanded the mission? Music education and support for teaching artists with disabilities. Min-jun stared. Hae-won could be our first partner, advisor, curriculum designer. We pay him a real salary. He gets the wheelchair and the dignity of contributing. Solara was already making notes in her phone. We create a model. Other cities could replicate it. It's not rescue, it's infrastructure. You're serious? Completely. She looked up. But only if you're comfortable. This is your life, your friendship. I won't overstep. Min-jun pulled her into a kiss. Deep, grateful. Full of everything words couldn't hold. Let's ask him, he said when they broke apart. Together. They found Hae-won in the hallway. When they explained the proposal, his eyes filled. You're serious, he whispered. Completely, Solara said. We need someone who understands music education from the inside. Who knows what it's like to teach with limited resources? Who can design programs that work for real students in real schools? I'd be honored. Hae-won's voice shook. But I have one condition. Name it. Min-jun has to let me pay him back, slowly, with dignity, no arguments. Min-jun opened his mouth, closed it, nodded. Deal, Solara said. They shook hands. 3 people building something new from the ruins of old systems. And for the first time since the boardroom, Solara felt certainty. She hadn't walked away from her empire. She'd built a better one. The article hit at 6 a.m. Former Beaumont CEO launches music nonprofit with partner Park Min-jun. Love story or PR rebrand. The photo was damning. Solara and Min-jun leaving Seongsu Elementary, hands linked, Hae-won visible in the background. The article speculated wildly. Some called it redemption. Others called it a vanity project. The comments section was a war zone. Lee Ji-woo called. Have you seen it? Yes. And nothing. Solara set down her phone. They can write whatever they want. The work speaks for itself. That's very zen of you. Also possibly delusional. Ji-woo's voice softened. But I'm proud of you. Thank you for staying, after everything. Where else would I go? You're the only boss who ever saw me as more than a crisis manager. Pause. Also, the fund needs a communications director. I'm applying. Solara's chest ached. Ji-woo, don't get sentimental. I'm doing it for selfish reasons. Beaumont Holdings is about to become Choi Sang-hyun's puppet show. I'd rather build something real. Her voice turned brisk. I'm drafting a press release. We announce the fund officially. List our mission. Introduce the team. Control the narrative before it controls us. Do it. Already done. It goes out in an hour. She hung up. Efficient. Loyal. Perfect. Min-jun emerged from the bedroom. Her new apartment. Smaller. Warmer. An actual home. Was that Ji-woo? She's joining us. His smile was sunrise. We're really doing this. We're really doing this. They made breakfast together. Eggs and rice and kimchi from the corner store. Simple, domestic. Everything her penthouse life had never been. What's the first piano we restore? Min-jun asked. Solara pulled out his notebook, opened to the first page. This one, Yongsan Community Center. You wrote that Mrs. Kim's grandson wants to learn. He's 8, never touched an instrument, but he hums constantly. Perfect pitch, like his grandmother. Then we start there. They arrived at Yongsan Community Center with a team. Min-jun, Hae-won, 2 volunteer technicians, and Solara carrying tools she didn't know how to use but was learning. The piano was a 1985 upright, out of tune, hammers worn, but structurally sound. Mrs. Kim watched with her grandson, Ji-hoon. The boy's eyes were huge. Can you really fix it? Ji-hoon asked. We can, Min-jun said. Want to help? They worked for 6 hours. Min-jun taught Ji-hoon how to test keys. Hae-won explained temperament and tone. Solara sanded hammers under supervision, her hands aching but satisfied. When they finished, Min-jun sat at the bench. Ji-hoon, play something. I don't know how. Then make it up. The boy pressed middle C, then D, then a cascade of notes that had no structure but pure joy. Mrs. Kim cried. Solara cried. Even the volunteers looked suspiciously misty. "Thank you," Mrs. Kim said. "You gave him a future." "No," Solara said. "We just remembered he was here." That night, the press release went live. The Fund of Silences, Restoring Music, Rebuilding Community. It detailed their mission, introduced the team, listed partner schools. The response was immediate. Donations, volunteer applications, partnership requests. But the comment that mattered most came from Helen Beaumont, posted publicly on the Foundation's new website. "Proud to support this initiative. Real legacy isn't built in boardrooms, it's built in communities. HB." Solara read it 3 times, saved a screenshot, sent Helen a text. "Thank you." The response was instant. "Thank yourself. You did the work." Minjun wrapped his arms around her from behind. "How does it feel?" "Terrifying, exhilarating." "Right. Good." They stood at the window. Seoul glittered below. Not her empire anymore, just her city, and that was enough. 3 weeks into the fund's operation, Choi Sang-hyun made his move. The email arrived at midnight. Subject: Formal complaint to the advisory board. Solara opened it. Read. Her blood turned to ice. Choi claimed she'd violated non-compete clauses by launching the fund, that she'd used proprietary Beaumont Holdings contacts, that she'd damaged the company's reputation through her reckless personal choices. He demanded her removal from the advisory board, forfeiture of her shares, and a formal investigation. It was legal warfare, designed to crush her. Solara called her lawyer at 12:47 a.m. "Is any of this legitimate?" "Barely. But he has enough to force a hearing. It'll be expensive. Public. Messy." Her lawyer's voice was grim. "He's betting you'll settle to avoid the fight. What do you recommend?" "Settle. Take a reduced share package. Walk away clean." Solara hung up, stared at her ceiling, thought of everything she'd built, the empire, the sacrifices, the years of never yielding. Then she thought of Ji-hoon playing his first notes, of Haewon designing curriculum with tears in his eyes, of Minjun's hands on piano keys, making beauty from brokenness. She called Helen. "I saw the complaint," Helen said without preamble. "It's garbage, but it's strategic garbage. What should I do?" "Fight. I'm tired of fighting." "Then rest. But don't surrender." Helen's voice was steel. "Choi wants you gone because you're a threat. Because your work, the real work, the fund, shows what leadership looks like beyond profit margins. If you settle, you're telling every woman who comes after you that leaving is the only option. I don't know if I have the strength. You do, and you're not alone. I'm calling an emergency board meeting. We're going to remind Choi Sang-hyun that I still control 30% of voting shares, and that I don't take kindly to bullies. Helen, sleep. We fight tomorrow." She hung up. Solara sat in the dark, phone in hand, decision crystallizing. Minjun emerged from the bedroom. "What's wrong?" she told him. All of it. The complaint, the threats, the choice between fighting and walking away. He sat beside her. "What do you want to do?" "I want to focus on the fund, on Ji-hoon and Mrs. Kim and the 100 other schools waiting for pianos. I'm tired of Choi, tired of corporate warfare, tired of proving myself." "Then don't." But Helen's right. "If I don't fight, I'm setting a precedent. So fight differently." Minjun took her hands. "Not in boardrooms, in public, through the work. Show them that your value isn't tied to Beaumont Holdings, that you're building something bigger." "How?" "Document everything, the pianos, the kids, the communities. Let the world see what matters to you now. Choi wants to make you small. Make yourself infinite instead. Solara stared at him. You're saying I should ignore the complaint? I'm saying you should transcend it. He smiled. He's fighting yesterday's battle. You're building tomorrow's world. She kissed him. Hard. Grateful. I love you, she said. I know. He pulled her close. Now let's prove that love builds better than fear ever could. The next morning, Solara didn't respond to Choi's complaint. Instead, she released a video. 30 minutes. Unscripted. Just her, in the Yongsan Community Center, explaining the fund's mission. Ji-hoon played behind her. Mrs. Kim talked about music saving her grandson. Hae-won discussed accessible arts education. Min-jun tuned a piano, hands sure, purpose clear. The video went viral. Within 48 hours, 2 million views, 500 new donors, partnership requests from 20 cities, and a statement from Helen Beaumont, issued through Beaumont Holdings' official channels. True leadership creates value beyond the balance sheet. Proud of what Solara Beaumont is building. Choi's complaint died in committee. No formal hearing, no public battle, just quiet retreat. Because Solara had done what she always did. She'd changed the game. 6 months after leaving Beaumont Holdings, Solara stood in the fund's new headquarters. Not a glass tower. A converted warehouse in Seongsu-dong with exposed brick and natural light. Piano restoration space on the first floor. Offices and teaching studios on the second. Community performance space on the third. It was everything her old office wasn't. Warm, lived in, full of sound. Lee Ji-woo walked through with a tablet, directing volunteers. Hae-won worked with a team designing adaptive music curriculum. Min-jun supervised 3 technicians restoring a 1960s grand piano destined for a middle school in Gwangju. We're at capacity, Ji-woo announced. 53 pianos in restoration queue. 82 schools on the waiting list. Volunteer applications through next year. We need more space, Solara said. Already on it. Found a second warehouse in Mapo. Owners willing to lease cheap if we restore pianos for local community centers. Do it. Ji-woo grinned. Already did. Signed papers this morning. Solara laughed. What would I do without you? Crash and burn, obviously. Ji-woo's expression softened. Seriously, though, this is good work. Real work. Thank you for letting me be part of it. Thank you for staying. A crash from downstairs. Min-jun's voice. It's fine. Just a hammer. Nobody's dead. They both laughed. That evening, Solara and Min-jun sat on the rooftop of the warehouse. Seoul spread below, lights beginning to glow as dusk deepened. They shared cheap beer and kimbap from the corner store. Remember when you handed me that tuning fork? Solara asked. On the subway. You laughed. I thought I'd never hear that sound again. I hadn't laughed in years. Not really. And now? She smiled. Now I laugh at Min-jun's terrible jokes, at Ji-woo's deadpan commentary, at 8-year-olds discovering Middle C. She leaned against him. Now I remember what it feels like to be alive. Worth it? He asked quietly. Every sacrifice. Every scared moment. Every choice. She turned to face him. I thought power meant controlling everything, but real power is knowing what to let go. Min-jun kissed her. Soft. Sure. For my mother, who listened to the world, he quoted the tuning fork's engraving. And for us, Solara added, who learned to listen to each other. They sat until stars competed with city lights, until the air turned cold and their beer went warm, until the only sound was breath and heartbeat and distant music from the community center across the street. Somewhere below, a piano played. Imperfect, but alive. And Solara Beaumont, Sarah Johnson, the girl from Mississippi, and the woman who'd conquered boardrooms and rebuilt herself in warehouse light, finally felt like home. The press conference was Min-jun's idea. The fund is getting attention. National media. International interest. We should tell the story ourselves before someone else does it wrong. Solara had resisted initially. Public appearances felt like the old life. But Ji-woo had agreed with Min-jun. Control the narrative, or it controls you. So on a bright November morning, they held a press conference at the fund's headquarters. 50 journalists, cameras from 3 major networks, and a single restored piano on the stage. Solara wore a simple gray dress. No armor, no black pearls, just herself. "Thank you for coming," she began. "6 months ago, I resigned from Beaumont Holdings. The media speculated. Some called it scandal. Others called it breakdown. I'm here to tell you what it actually was. A choice." The room was silent. "I spent 15 years building an empire. I'm proud of that work. But empires require armor. And armor over time becomes a cage." She gestured to the piano. "This instrument is 47 years old. It spent the last decade in a storage unit. Forgotten. When we found it, most people said it wasn't worth restoring. Too old, too damaged, too expensive." Min-jun joined her on stage. "But we saw something different. Not just wood and strings. Memory, potential, value that couldn't be measured in resale price. The Fund of Silences exists because of a simple belief," Solara continued, "that everyone deserves access to beauty, to music, to the experience of making something meaningful." She smiled. "We've restored 63 pianos, placed them in schools and community centers across Seoul, provided free lessons to over 200 children, and we're just beginning." A journalist raised her hand. "President Beaumont, just Solara." "Solara, some critics say this is vanity philanthropy, that you're using nonprofit work to rehabilitate your image after a public relationship scandal. How do you respond?" Solara didn't flinch. "I respond by inviting you to visit our partner schools. Talk to the children playing pianos they never thought they'd touch. Ask Mrs. Kim and Youngsan if this is vanity. Ask the 8-year-old who discovered he has perfect pitch if this is image rehabilitation." Another journalist. "But you did leave Beaumont Holdings after pressure about your relationship with Mr. Park. Doesn't that validate the criticism?" Min-jun stepped forward. "I'm going to answer that." His voice was calm, clear. "Solara didn't leave because of me. She left because she'd built something that no longer fit who she was becoming. I just happened to be there when she remembered what she actually valued." "And your relationship?" the journalist pressed. "Is none of your business." Min-jun smiled. "But since you asked, yes, we're together. Yes, it's serious. And yes, it's the best decision either of us ever made. Next question." The room rippled with surprised laughter. Solara took his hand. "I want to say something about choices. About the narratives women face when they choose love or passion or purpose over profit. I was told I had to choose. Career or relationship. Empire or heart. Success or happiness. But that's a false binary. I'm building a nonprofit that will serve thousands of children. I'm advising Beaumont Holdings on strategic initiatives. I'm maintaining relationships with donors and partners. And yes, I'm in love. I'm doing all of it. Because I'm allowed to be complicated." Helen Beaumont entered from the back of the room. Cameras swiveled. "May I say something?" Helen asked. Solara nodded, surprised. Helen walked to the stage, stood beside Solara. "I've known this woman for 15 years. I funded her MBA. I mentored her. I watched her build Beaumont Holdings into a powerhouse. And I'm prouder of her today than I ever was in any boardroom." She turned to the cameras. "Real leadership isn't about control. It's about clarity. About knowing what you're building and why." Solara left a CEO position to build something more important. Community. Legacy. A world where music belongs to everyone, not just those who can afford it. She looked at Solara. "I spent 40 years regretting the choice I didn't make. Thank you for being brave enough to make yours." They hugged. The cameras captured it. But neither of them cared. After the press conference, journalists toured the facilities. They interviewed Hae-won about adaptive curriculum. They watched Min-jun tune a piano while explaining temperament. They met Ji-hoon, now taking weekly lessons. who played a simple melody with devastating focus. The coverage that followed was universal. Beaumont's second act. From boardrooms to community rooms. The CEO who chose music over money. But the headline Solara saved came from a small education blog. This is what it looks like when someone remembers what matters. And that night, back in their apartment, Minjun played the upright while Solara sat on the floor, head against the piano's side, feeling the vibrations. "You were amazing today," he said, fingers moving across keys. "I was terrified. Didn't show." "Good." She closed her eyes. "Play the thing your mother used to play, the one about silence." He shifted into the melody. Simple, haunting. The spaces between notes as important as the notes themselves. "She'd be proud of you," Solara said. "Of what you're building. She'd be proud of us." He finished the melody. Silence settled. "Want to know something?" "Always. The first time I saw you on that subway, I thought, there's someone who forgot how to hear the world. And I wanted to remind you. You did. No. You reminded yourself. I just held up a mirror." She stood, sat beside him on the bench. "Teach me." "Teach you what?" "To play. Not perfectly. Just enough to understand." He positioned her hands. "This is middle C. The center of everything." She pressed it. The note resonated. "Now build from there." They played together. Her single notes, his harmonies. A conversation in sound that didn't need words. And in that small apartment with a 40-year-old piano and cheap furniture, and love that had survived boardrooms and ultimatums and public scrutiny, Solara Beaumont finally understood what her mother had tried to teach her before cancer stole her voice. Home isn't a place. It's a sound. The resonance of being fully, completely, dangerously yourself. And she was finally home. 3 months after the press conference, the fund hosted its first public recital. The venue was the community center in Yongsan, where it all began with Mrs. Kim and Ji-hoon. They'd transformed the space, rows of folding chairs, a small stage, the restored 1985 upright taking pride of place. Students from 6 partner schools would perform. Solara stood backstage, nerves electric. "You're shaking," Minjun observed. "This matters. What if no one comes? What if the kids forget their pieces? What if we've built something nobody cares about?" He kissed her forehead. "Then we've built it for the 20 people who do care. That's enough." The doors opened at 6 p.m. By 6:15, every seat was full. By 6:30, people stood along the walls. Lee Ji-woo did a quick count. 300 attendees, local news cameras, Helen Beaumont in the front row. And in the back, unexpected, board members from Beaumont Holdings. Even Choi Sang-hyun, expression unreadable. The recital began. Ji-hoon played first. The simple piece Minjun had taught him, basic, but played with such fierce concentration that the room held its breath. When he finished, the applause was thunderous. Student after student performed. A teenager playing jazz, a grandmother playing Chopin, a group of elementary children playing a piece they'd composed together. But the moment that broke, everyone came near the end. Hae-won wheeled himself on stage. "I was a music teacher for 15 years, he said into the microphone. "Then I got sick, lost the use of my legs, lost my career, lost myself." He gestured to the piano. "This organization gave me back my purpose, so I'm going to play something I wrote. It's called The Sound of Being Remembered." His hands moved across the keys. The melody was complex, layered, full of grief and joy and survival. It spoke of loss and rebuilding, of being seen when you thought you'd become invisible. When he finished, there wasn't a dry eye in the room. Solara stood, walked on stage, hugged Hae-won. The applause shook the walls. "This," she said into the microphone, "is why we exist, not for press conferences or headlines. For moments like this, for people like Hae-won and Ji-hoon and every person who was told music wasn't for them." She looked at Minjun. And for the people who remember us when everyone else forgets. Minjun joined her. Together, they played the piece his mother used to play. Not perfectly, but alive. After the recital, Helen found Solara in the small office backstage. "That was extraordinary," Helen said. "Thank you for coming. I wouldn't have missed it." Helen sat. "I saw Choi in the audience. He looked uncomfortable." "Good. He approached me afterward, asked if Beaumont Holdings could partner with the fund. Corporate sponsorship, matching donations." Solara stiffened. "What did you say?" "I said I'd relay the offer, but the decision is yours." Helen's gaze was steady. "He's trying to co-opt what you've built, make it part of the empire. I won't let that happen." "I know. But consider this. His money spends the same as anyone else's. If he wants to donate to assuage his guilt, take it. Use it to restore more pianos. Just don't let him control the mission." Solara thought of Ji-hoon, of Haiwan, of the 80 schools still on the waiting list. "I'll think about it. That's all I ask." Helen stood. "One more thing. I'm establishing a permanent endowment for the fund. $5 million. No strings. Just support." Solara's throat closed. "Helen, don't. I should have done this for James. I'm doing it for you." She touched Solara's face. "You showed me it's not too late to choose love. Thank you." They held each other. Two women who'd survived empires and found something better on the other side. The piano arrived on a Thursday. 1952. Steinway Grand. Concert quality. Donated by an anonymous benefactor. The note simply read, "For the children who deserve to hear what beauty sounds like." Minjun inspected it with reverence. "This is worth $200,000. Maybe more." "Where do we put it?" Solara asked. "Not in storage." Minjun's eyes gleamed. "We use it. Create a mentorship program. Bring in professional pianists to teach master classes. Let kids who've never touched a quality instrument feel what it's like." "I love it." They spent the next month building the program. 3 professional pianists volunteered their time. 20 students were selected, including Ji-hoon, whose perfect pitch had developed into genuine talent. The first master class was scheduled for December 18th. The night before, Solara couldn't sleep. She found Minjun on the rooftop, staring at the Seoul skyline. "Can't sleep either?" she asked. "Thinking about my mother. She'd have loved this, watching kids discover what a real piano sounds like." Solara wrapped her arms around him from behind. "She'd be proud, not just of the program, of you. Sometimes I wonder if I chose the wrong path, if I should have tried to be a performer like her. You're performing every day, just differently." She turned him to face her. "You make pianos sing. You teach children to hear silence. You remind people that beauty isn't reserved for concert halls. That's a performance." He kissed her. "How did I get this lucky?" "You handed a control-obsessed billionaire a tuning fork and told her not everything can be bought." She smiled. "Also, you make terrible jokes and excellent kimchi jjigae. The jjigae is why you stayed." "Obviously." They laughed, held each other, watched the city breathe. The master class exceeded every expectation. The visiting pianist, Kim Soo-jin, internationally renowned, played first, demonstrating what the Steinway could do in expert hands. Then she invited the students to try. Ji-hoon went last. He'd prepared a simple piece, but when his hands touched the keys, something shifted. The sound wasn't just notes. It was conversation. The piano responding to his touch, him listening to the piano's voice, a duet between boy and instrument. When he finished, Kim Soo-jin had tears on her face. "That," she said, "is why music matters. Not perfection, connection." She approached Solara and Minjun after the class. "That boy, Ji-hoon, he's extraordinary." "We know," Minjun said proudly. "I'd like to offer him a scholarship, formal training. He could study at the conservatory." Mrs. Kim, standing nearby, gasped. "We can't afford Full scholarship. Everything covered. Kim Soo-jin smiled. The fund found him. I'm just making sure he gets what he deserves. Ji-hoon looked at his grandmother, at Solara, at Min-jun. Really? Really? The boy cried. His grandmother cried. Half the room cried. And Solara understood, finally and completely. This was the empire worth building. Not glass towers and stock prices, but moments like this. Children discovering their voices. Communities remembering they matter. That night, Solara updated her list. The one she'd started 6 months ago, when her world was ending and beginning simultaneously. Things I've built. 1. A fund that's restored 89 pianos and counting. 2. Partnerships with 47 schools across Seoul. 3. A masterclass program with professional musicians. 4. A life where I breathe without armor. 5. A family that chose each other. She showed it to Min-jun. He read it, smiled, added one more line. 6. A home where silence means peace, not emptiness. Perfect, Solara whispered. Perfect, he agreed. 1 year after leaving Beaumont Holdings, Solara stood in the fund's expanded headquarters. 3 warehouses now. 112 pianos restored. 64 schools served. 237 children in music programs. The numbers mattered, but not the way they used to. Lee Ji-woo entered with champagne. Official news: the Seoul Metropolitan Government is partnering with us. They're allocating $3 million for citywide music education expansion. You're joking. Never about funding. Ji-woo popped the cork. We won, not just survived. Won. They toasted. The team gathered. Min-jun, Hae-won, the volunteers, the teachers, the children. A family built from purpose. Helen arrived with news of her own. Beaumont Holdings is launching a corporate foundation, focused on arts education. I'm chairing it. She looked at Solara. And I'd like the fund to be our flagship partner. Helen, before you say no, hear me out. Full operational independence. You maintain complete creative control. We provide funding and corporate partnerships. It's collaboration, not takeover. Solara looked at Min-jun. He nodded slightly. On one condition, Solara said. Name it. We name the partnership after James. The James and Helen Foundation for Music Education. Helen's composure cracked. Solara, he deserves to be remembered, and you deserve to honor him. Helen cried. Really cried. Yes. Thank you. Yes. The official announcement came in February. A joint press conference, Beaumont Holdings and the Fund of Silences, launching the James and Helen Foundation. The room was packed, media, donors, partners. But the moment Solara would remember forever came after. A woman approached, mid-50s, kind face, carrying a folder. President Beaumont, Solara, I'm Rachel, James's daughter. The world tilted. I saw the announcement, the foundation named after my father. Rachel's eyes were wet. He talked about your mother, Helen, until the day he died. Said she was the bravest person he knew, even when she made the wrong choice. Helen appeared, drawn by some instinct. Saw Rachel. Went pale. Rachel. Helen. They stared at each other across decades of regret. I'm sorry, Helen whispered. He forgave you. I'm not here to punish. Rachel opened the folder. I'm here to give you this. He wrote it 3 days before he died. Made me promise to deliver it if you ever honored his memory. She handed Helen an envelope. Helen's hands shook as she opened it. Read. Tears fell on paper. When she finished, she looked up. He says he understood. That loving me taught him how to love better. That he hoped I'd found peace. Did you? Rachel asked gently. Helen looked at Solara. At Min-jun. At the foundation that bore James's name. At the children playing restored pianos in the background. I'm finding it, Helen said. Finally. Rachel smiled. Then he'd be happy. They embraced, not as strangers, as two women connected by a man who'd loved completely, despite loss. That evening, Solara and Minjun returned to their apartment. Small, warm, the upright piano in the corner holding 40 years of memory. Today was overwhelming, Solara said, collapsing on the couch. Good overwhelming or bad overwhelming? Minjun handed her tea. Both. Mostly good. She sipped. Rachel said something that's been circling in my head. What? That James told her love isn't about having someone. It's about changing because of them. Solara set down the tea. I've been thinking about who I was a year ago. The armor, the control, the belief that needing anyone was weakness. And now I know that needing someone isn't weakness. It's the only thing that makes you strong enough to be soft. She took his hand. You didn't save me, Minjun. You just reminded me I was worth saving. He pulled her close. You did the same for me. I spent my whole life being invisible. The guy who tunes pianos, the friend who helps. You saw me, really saw me, made me believe I was worth being seen. They sat in comfortable silence, the kind that meant home. What's next? Minjun asked eventually. More pianos, more schools. Jihoon starts conservatory next month. Solara smiled. And I've been thinking about something Helen said, about not having to choose between empire and heart. What if we expanded? Not just Seoul, other cities, other countries. You want to build another empire. I want to build a better one piano at a time. Minjun laughed. That's the most Solara Beaumont thing you've ever said. Sarah, she corrected softly. I think I'm ready to be Sarah again, at least in private. Sarah. He tested the name, smiled. I like it. Who is she? She's the girl from Mississippi who learned to survive, and the woman from Seoul who learned to live. Solara, Sarah, stood, walked to the piano. Teach me something new. Like what? Something beautiful. Something I can play when I forget why any of this matters. He sat beside her on the bench, positioned her hands. This is a piece my mother wrote. She called it The Sound Between Words. It's about the things we feel but can't say. They played together, his harmonies supporting her simple melody, a conversation in sound that needed no translation. When they finished, Sarah rested her head on his shoulder. I love you, she said. I know. He kissed her hair. I loved you the moment you laughed on that subway, before you knew me, before you knew yourself. That's very dramatic. I'm a romantic, occupational hazard of working with pianos. She laughed. Real laughter, the kind that came from safety. And in that small apartment with a 40-year-old piano and cheap tea and love that had survived boardrooms and ultimatums and the complete reconstruction of identity, Sarah Johnson, Solara Beaumont, finally understood what home meant. Not a place, not a title, not a bank account or penthouse view. Home was the sound of someone breathing beside you, the weight of a hand in yours, the knowledge that you could be completely, dangerously yourself and still be loved. Home was a half-step adjustment on a subway, a tuning fork engraved with inheritance, a choice to listen instead of control. Home was now. 18 months later, the morning of the annual recital arrived with spring rain, soft, persistent, the kind that made Seoul smell like earth and possibility. Sarah stood at the window of the fund's main building, watching volunteers arrive with umbrellas and instrument cases. 300 students would perform today, from 6 cities, 15 schools, programs that hadn't existed 2 years ago. Nervous? Lee Ji-woo appeared with coffee. Terrified. This is 5 times bigger than last year. And we're ready. Venues secured. Programs printed. Media coverage confirmed. Ji-woo smiled. Also, I have news. Good or bad? Good. The Ministry of Education wants to adopt our model nationally. Full government partnership. They're proposing a 10-year plan. Sarah nearly dropped her coffee. You're serious? Completely. They want to announce it at the recital, make it official. That's everything we hoped for. It's everything you built. Jiwoo touched her shoulder. From a tuning fork to national policy. Not bad for 18 months. The recital took place across 3 venues simultaneously. The main performance at the Seoul Arts Center. Secondary venues in Busan and Daegu connected via live stream. Over 2,000 attendees in person. 50,000 watching online. Jihoon opened the Seoul performance. Now 10 years old, studying at the conservatory. He'd grown into his talent with grace. He played a piece he'd composed himself. The Piano That Remembered. This is for everyone who fixed the pianos nobody wanted, he said into the microphone, voice clear despite nerves. For Mr. Park, who taught me to listen. For Ms. Sarah, who taught me to believe. And for my grandmother, who never stopped hoping. The piece was complex, layered, full of the kind of emotional intelligence that couldn't be taught, only felt. When he finished, the standing ovation lasted 3 minutes. Sarah cried. Minjun handed her tissues. He's extraordinary, she whispered. He always was. We just gave him a piano. Student after student performed. A teenager from Busan playing jazz. A grandmother from Daegu playing traditional Korean melodies adapted for piano. Twin sisters who'd learned together on a restored 1970s upright. But the moment that shattered every heart came near the end. Haewon wheeled onto the stage. Beside him, a young woman with a cello. 2 years ago, I thought my life as a musician was over, Haewon said. Then the fund gave me purpose. But more than that, they gave me community. He gestured to the cellist. This is Yoonji. She lost hearing in her left ear after an accident. Thought she'd never perform again. We met through the fund's adaptive arts program. We wrote this together, Yoonji added. It's called What Remains. They played, piano and cello in conversation. The piece spoke of loss and adaptation, of finding new ways to make beauty when the old ways were closed. It was technically imperfect, Yoonji's timing slightly off, compensating for partial hearing loss, but emotionally flawless. When they finished, there was silence. Then, thunder. The Minister of Education stood, approached the microphone. I've seen many programs in my 30 years in government, she said. But this, what the Fund of Silences has built, this is transformative. Which is why I'm announcing, effective immediately, a national partnership. The James and Helen Foundation will receive full governmental support to expand to every province in Korea. The room erupted. Sarah found herself on stage without remembering how she got there. Minjun beside her. Helen in the wings, crying with pride. Thank you, Sarah managed into the microphone. But this isn't my achievement. It belongs to every child who touched a piano and discovered themselves. Every volunteer who restored instruments nobody else wanted. Every teacher who believed music belongs to everyone. She pulled out the tuning fork, worn silver, the engraving barely visible now from constant handling. This belonged to Minjun's mother, a pianist who believed music wasn't about concert halls. It was about community. Sarah held it up. This is our mission. Not perfection, connection, not exclusivity, access, not control, listening. Minjun took the microphone. We started with one piano, one school, one boy with perfect pitch who nobody had noticed. Now we're national, but the mission doesn't change. Remember the pianos nobody else remembers. Listen to the silences everyone else ignores. And love boldly, Sarah added, taking his hand. Because the only thing stronger than fear is the courage to choose yourself. The applause was seismic. After the recital, exhausted and exhilarated, Sarah and Minjun found themselves on the rooftop of the fund's headquarters. Seoul spread below, lights reflecting on rain-wet streets. We did it, Sarah said. You did it. We, she insisted. None of this happens without that subway ride. without you handing me a tuning fork and telling me not everything can be bought. I was trying to be profound. Mostly I just wanted you to smile. I'm smiling now. I can see that. They stood in companionable silence. Rain had stopped. Stars attempted to compete with city lights. Do you ever miss it? Minjun asked. The boardrooms, the power, being President Beaumont. Sarah considered. Sometimes. The clarity of numbers, the thrill of closing a deal, the respect that came with the title. She turned to him. But then I remember what I traded it for. Ji-hoon discovering his voice. Haewon finding purpose. You. This. A life where I breathe without armor. So no regrets? None. She kissed him. You? Only that I didn't meet you sooner. You met me exactly when I was ready to be met. That's very wise. I'm learning from a piano tuner who taught me that silence has sound. They laughed, held each other, watched Seoul breathe. What's next? Minjun asked eventually. Everything. Sarah's eyes gleamed. Expand to Japan, Singapore, find partners who believe what we believe. Build until every child who wants to touch a piano can. Another empire. A better one. That's my girl. Your woman, she corrected. My Sarah. The name settled around her. Comfortable. True. She thought of the girl from Mississippi. The woman who'd changed her name to sound powerful. The CEO who'd built an empire from hunger and will. The person who'd finally learned that real power wasn't control. It was the courage to be soft, to need, to love, to let someone adjust your frequency when you'd gone out of tune. I have something for you, Minjun said. He handed her a small box. Inside, a silver tuning fork. New. Engraved with fresh lettering, for Sarah, who learned to listen to the world and to herself. Her hands trembled. I'm not replacing my mother's, Minjun said quickly. That one's sacred, but I wanted you to have your own, your inheritance to pass forward. Sarah tested it. The note rang pure, A440, perfect pitch. It's perfect, she whispered. You're perfect. I'm complicated. Same thing. She kissed him, long, deep, full of gratitude and promise, and the particular intimacy of two people who'd chosen each other against every logical argument. When they broke apart, Minjun smiled. So, should we get married? Sarah blinked. What? Married. You know, the thing where we promise to keep choosing each other even when it's hard. Are you proposing? I'm asking a question. Proposing comes with a ring, and probably more planning. He tilted his head. But yeah, basically proposing. On a rooftop, with no ring. After the biggest day of our professional lives. Terrible timing? He looked worried. Perfect timing. Sarah laughed through tears. Yes. Obviously yes. Yeah? Yeah. He spun her, kissed her, set her down gently. I'll do it properly, he promised. With a ring. And probably Helen's approval because she's terrifying. She'll cry. Then she'll try to plan the entire wedding. Let her. She deserves joy. They stood on the rooftop until the city quieted. Until their phones stopped buzzing with congratulations. Until the only sound was breathing and heartbeat and the distant echo of a piano someone was playing in the neighborhood below. Imperfect, but alive. 6 months later, the wedding was small, intimate, held at the Yongsan Community Center where everything had begun. Helen walked Sarah down the aisle. Lee Ji-woo officiated. Haewon played piano. Ji-hoon performed a piece he'd written, the sound of two people listening. The ceremony was simple. Vows written themselves, promises to choose each other, to build together, to remember that love isn't about perfection, it's about presence. I promise to always hand you a tuning fork when you've gone out of tune, Minjun said. I promise to always follow you to strange schools and trust where you lead, Sarah replied. They exchanged rings, simple silver bands, engraved inside, "Listen." When they kissed, the room, filled with students, volunteers, friends who'd become family, erupted in joy. The reception was held in the fund's main warehouse, tables among restored pianos, food from the neighborhood restaurants that had fed Minjun for years, music provided by students, teachers, anyone who wanted to play. Helen gave a toast. 20 years ago, I chose fear over love. 10 years ago, I discovered what that cost me. 2 years ago, I watched Sarah, Solara, make the choice I couldn't. And today, I'm witnessing what happens when someone is brave enough to live fully. She raised her glass. To Sarah and Minjun, may you always remember that the best music is played without armor. To Sarah and Minjun, the room echoed. Jiwoo's toast was characteristically practical. I've worked with Sarah for 9 years. She's brilliant, stubborn, and occasionally maddening. Minjun somehow makes her less of all those things while making her more herself. That's magic, or at least very good strategy. Laughter rippled through the room. Haewon's toast was last. I was invisible until this organization remembered I existed. Minjun has been doing that his whole life, remembering people. Sarah learned to do it too. Together, they've built something that proves the best things in life aren't controlled. They're chosen. "Here, here," someone called. Late in the evening, Sarah found herself at the 1985 upright, the first piano they'd restored together. She sat, played the simple piece Minjun had taught her, still imperfect, but hers. Minjun joined her, added harmonies. "Happy?" he asked. "Unbelievably." "No regrets? About the empire, the power, the life you left behind?" She thought of the girl from Mississippi, the woman in the boardroom, the person she'd become when she stopped choosing fear. "I left behind armor," Sarah said. "But I kept the strength. I left behind control, but I kept the vision. I left behind President Beaumont, but I found Sarah Johnson." She looked at him. "And that trade? Best deal I ever closed. That's very corporate of you. Old habits." They laughed, played, let the party continue around them. Much later, after guests had left and volunteers had cleaned and the warehouse had returned to peaceful silence, Sarah and Minjun stood alone among the pianos. "Do you remember the first time you brought me here?" Sarah asked. "To Yongsan? You sat on the floor, watched a little girl play for Elise. Looked like you'd never seen music before." "I hadn't. Not really." Sarah walked to the window. Soul glittered. I'd spent 15 years hearing noise but not listening. Moving, but not breathing. Surviving, but not living. And now I hear everything. She turned. The way Ji-hoon's playing has matured. The confidence in Haewon's voice. The way you hum when you're tuning hammers. The sound of my own heart when it's not buried under armor. Minjun crossed to her, held her. "Thank you," Sarah whispered. "For what?" "For seeing me when I couldn't see myself. For teaching me that not everything can be bought. For handing me a tuning fork and changing my life. You changed your own life. I just adjusted the pitch." She kissed him. "We should go home. We're already home." And he was right. Home wasn't the apartment. Wasn't the warehouse. Wasn't Seoul or Mississippi or any physical place. Home was the choice to keep choosing each other. The courage to be soft and strong simultaneously. The understanding that the best things in life, love, music, purpose, couldn't be controlled. They could only be listened to. Sarah and Minjun left the warehouse hand in hand. The Seoul night wrapped around them, cool, clear, full of possibility. Somewhere in the city, a piano played. Imperfect but alive. A child discovering notes. A community remembering it mattered. And Sarah Johnson, who'd been Solara Beaumont, who'd built empires and torn them down, who'd learned to measure worth in presence instead of profit, finally understood the lesson Minjun's mother had tried to teach the world. Music isn't about the notes. It's about the silence between them, the space where meaning lives, the breath before the sound, the moment of listening that transforms everything. She'd spent her whole life filling the silence with noise, ambition, control, fear disguised as strength. But silence wasn't empty. It was full of possibility, full of presence, full of the sound of two people breathing in rhythm. "I love you," Sarah said as they walked. "I know," Min-jun replied. "I've known since the subway." "That's very confident." "That's very true." They walked home, through streets that had witnessed their transformation, past the school where Min-jun had refused her NDA, past the cafe where they'd drunk terrible coffee and shared their scars, past the subway station where a tuning fork had saved a life, and above them, Seoul breathed. A city of millions, each person carrying their own frequency, each heart searching for the note that made them resonate. Sarah had found hers, not in boardrooms or stock prices or the empire she'd built from hunger and will, but in a man who remembered pianos nobody else remembered, in children discovering their voices, in the courage to be completely, dangerously herself, in the silence between notes, where love lived, where home was built, where the armor finally fell away, and the heart, at last, learned to listen.